You are about to fly a job for a client 500 feet up, right next to what looks like an empty field. You never checked the sectional chart. 30 seconds later, a Cessna clips past at eye level, close enough that you can see the pilot's face. That field wasn't empty airspace. It was the edge of Class Delta, and you had no idea. This is exactly why every Part 107 pilot has to know how to read a sectional chart, and today we're breaking it down so you never make that mistake. A sectional chart is basically the master map of the sky. It shows you every type of controlled and uncontrolled airspace, every airport, every tower, every obstacle, and the exact altitudes you're allowed to fly at. If you can read one of these charts confidently, you're not just going to pass your Part 107 exam, you're going to fly safer on every single job for the rest of your career. Let's start with color, because color is the fastest way to identify airspace at a glance. Blue lines mean Class Bravo or Class Delta airspace. Bravo is usually drawn as solid blue rings around major international airports, and it's the most restrictive airspace you'll deal with as a drone pilot. Delta is shown with a dashed blue line, and you'll find it around smaller towered airports, the kind you're probably flying near most often. Magenta, that pinkish-purple color, marks Class Charlie airspace, usually around mid-size airports with radar approach control. If you see a shaded magenta gradient instead of a hard line, that's Class Echo airspace starting at 700 feet instead of the usual 1,200. And if you don't see any shading or lines at all, that's Class Golf, uncontrolled airspace, where the least restrictions apply. Here's the part almost every new pilot misses. Those lines aren't decoration. Each one comes with a hard altitude ceiling for drone operations, unless you have prior authorization through LAANC or a waiver. Flying inside the blue dashed ring of Class Delta without authorization isn't a technicality. It's a direct violation, and exactly the kind of scenario the Part 107 exam loves to test with tricky word problems. Next, the numbers scattered across the chart. Bold numbers next to airports tell you field elevation in feet above mean sea level. Larger numbers printed across sections of the map are your maximum elevation figures, the highest point in that quadrant including towers or terrain. This matters more than people realize, because your 100-foot ceiling as a drone pilot depends on ground elevation directly below you, not sea level. Get this wrong near mountainous terrain, and you could violate your altitude limit without ever realizing it. Speaking of towers, look for the tiny inverted V symbols on the chart. Each represents an obstacle, usually a radio or cell tower, with two numbers stacked beside it. The top number is the tower's height above sea level, and the number in parentheses underneath is its height above the ground. Towers over 200 feet are exactly why visual observers and careful pre-flight planning matter, especially on industrial inspection jobs near power infrastructure. Now let's get practical for a second, because knowing the theory is only half the battle. Say you're heading out to fly a real estate job at an address you've never been to before. Before you even pack the truck, pull up the sectional chart for that location. Check what airspace class you're in. Check the maximum elevation figure for that grid. Look for nearby airports and any dashed magenta rings that might extend further than you'd expect. This 5-minute habit is the difference between a routine flight and an FAA incident report. If all of this feels like a lot to memorize, don't worry, that's normal. I put together a free Part 107 cheat sheet that breaks down every airspace color, every symbol, and every altitude rule from this video onto one single page you can study from anywhere. The link is right below this video. Go grab it before you keep watching, because we're about to cover special use airspace, and that part trips up even experienced pilots. Special use airspace is a whole separate category, and it includes restricted areas, military operations areas, and prohibited areas. These show up as blue or magenta hatch boundaries with a number label starting with letters like R for restricted or P for prohibited. Flying into restricted airspace without clearance isn't just a rule violation. In some cases, it's treated as a serious federal offense, especially near military installations. Always check the chart's margin notes for activation times, because some of these areas are only restricted during specific hours or specific days. One more symbol worth knowing is the magenta flag icon, which marks visual checkpoints used by manned aircraft for navigation near busy airports. If you're flying near one of these, expect more air traffic passing directly overhead at lower altitudes than usual, even outside controlled airspace. Here's the honest truth about the Part 107 exam. A huge percentage of the questions on test day are scenario-based, showing you a cropped piece of a sectional chart and asking what class of airspace you're in, or whether you'd need authorization to fly at a given altitude. Memorizing definitions alone won't get you through these questions. You have to actually practice reading charts, the same way you'd practice reading a map before a road trip. So here's what I want you to do. Pull up any sectional chart of your own city today, even just on your phone. Find the nearest airport, identify what class of airspace surrounds it, and check the maximum elevation figure for your neighborhood. Do that once and this entire video will click into place in a way that flashcards never could. If you found this useful, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're covering a new Part 107 topic every single week, building toward one complete study system so you walk into that exam room fully prepared. And if you're ready to go deeper than free videos can take you, check out the full Remote Pilot Accelerator course linked in the description, with practice questions modeled directly after the real exam. Fly safe, study smart, and I'll see you in the next one.